Can just anyone go out and blast? No. Each blast requires a permit issued by the county and can only be initiated by a licensed blast technician who must be certified by the state and county. It is this expert's responsibility to ensure that the ground vibrations from the blast do not exceed the stringent standards set by the county. To ensure this, every blast is independently monitored by both the industry and the Miami-Dade County Public Works Department using seismographs. What is the county blast standard? Blast vibrations are essentially waves moving in the ground. The county standard sets a speed limit for the vibrations, much as a highway speed limit does for cars. In order to keep the mining blast under the speed limit, blast technicians use the principle of sequencing. When pebbles are thrown in water, we can see that the waves generated from the impact are much greater when the pebbles are all thrown in at once than when they hit the water one by one in quick succession. Vibration waves in the ground behave similarly, but in order to accurately measure them, we need a more precise method. That is why the county uses seismographs. Seismographs measure the peak particle velocity of the ground vibration waves using units of inches per second. The Miami-Dade County standard for peak particle velocity is 0.75 inches per second. What are inches per second? We start with a particle sitting on the ground. A ground vibration wave approaches, and a particle responds with circular motion. The particle travels once around the circle with each wave. Each wave is about 500 feet long. The height of the wave is equal to the diameter of the circle, which in the case of blasting vibrations is about 1/100th of an inch, or about the same as the diameter of a human hair. The particle travels about 3/100ths of an inch around the circle as each wave goes by. Each second, about 24 waves pass by, producing total motion of 3/4 of an inch around the circle. No more than the thickness of a human hair, these ground vibration waves meet the county standard for peak particle velocity of 0.75 inches per second. How are the blasts designed to keep vibrations at a safe level? As we've seen with the pebbles thrown in water, sequencing keeps vibrations low. Using this principle, the industry works with blasting experts and Miami-Dade County to design blasts that are actually chains of many smaller blasts. Slow-motion video shows that the individual holes are set off one by one. In real time, the entire sequence would take about 1 second. This is how the sequence works. An array of holes is drilled 60 to 80 feet deep and lined with cardboard tubes. Then the holes are filled with special two-part explosives combined at the blast site. The charges are then connected with timing wires designed to chain them into a very specific sequence of individual explosions in order to minimize vibrations away from the blast area. When designed in this way, the blast sequence results in vibrations from many holes that are essentially the same as the vibrations from a single hole, because the delay between charges keeps the vibration waves separated. Blasting is an exacting science. If the blast is too small, the limestone will not be fractured, and a larger portion of the energy will travel away as vibrations. Additionally, small blasts with fewer holes means blasting would have to occur more frequently. On the other hand, if a big blast is not properly designed, more energy than necessary will travel away from the blast site as vibrations. This is why blasting in the lake belt is left to experts who combine science, technology, and experience in order to design a blast sequence with just the right amount of explosives, at just the right spacing, at just the right timing between charges, to maximize limestone fracturing and to minimize ground wave vibrations. When the blast sequence is properly designed, more than 95% of the blast energy is dissipated in the blast array itself. Only 20 feet outside of the array of holes, the limestone is not fractured or damaged at all. The remaining ground vibrations continue to diminish with distance, so that very little energy is transmitted beyond 1/4 of a mile. This allows the vibrations to fall below the county standard by the time they reach your house. But I can feel the vibrations. The point at which people perceive vibrations is much less than the Miami-Dade County standard. Like living seismographs, people can sense extremely small vibrations, as small as 2/100ths of an inch per second. Some are annoyed or concerned by any vibration they can feel, while other people are not at all concerned or annoyed by vibrations at the county standard. Human beings can feel tiny vibrations, but only seismographs can accurately measure whether vibrations are safe. Decades of extensive government studies by the U.S. Bureau of Mines and other agencies have determined safety thresholds. The government has determined an extremely conservative safety limit for vibrations that varies from 0.75 to 2.0 inches per second, depending on conditions. These values will not cause cracking and provide an adequate factor of safety. In general, the minimum threshold for minor superficial cracking at drywall joints is about 4 inches per second, or 5 times higher than the county standard of 0.75 inches per second. The threshold for damage to a structure is about 8 inches per second, 10 times higher than the county standard. And the threshold for cracking to a concrete slab or driveway is about 10 inches per second, 13 times higher than the county standard. If such a crack occurred in the concrete, then essentially all the drywall joints in the entire house would also have had to crack as a result of the same vibrations. When we compare these thresholds to human perception, we find that everyone can perceive vibrations 37 times less than the Miami-Dade County standard of 0.75 inches per second, and 200 times less than 4 inches per second, the general threshold for minor superficial cracking at drywall joints. But doesn't repeated blasting cause damage? By all national standards, the Miami-Dade County limit of 0.75 inches per second is a safe and realistic level, even for repeated blasting. The government did studies in which they vibrated entire houses continuously for several days with special equipment. As long as vibrations are below the county standard, these studies showed there will be no effects from repetitive vibrations. What about the noise I hear from a blast? In addition to ground vibrations, the blast creates noise called air blast. These noise levels are also regulated by Miami-Dade County to be well within safe limits and fall below the noise generated by a low-flying jet or Florida thunderstorm. But I have cracks in my house. Improper foundations can cause uneven settling of houses. For example, if any organic muck soil was left under the house pad before construction, the house will not settle evenly, and concrete foundations or walls may crack. This can be exacerbated in the dry season when these soils may dry out and shrink. The most astonishing measurements in the government studies were the relatively enormous strains caused in the walls of houses by daily changes in temperature and humidity. These strains can be related to equivalent peak particle velocity in inches per second in order to compare them to the county standard. A 10% humidity change, 1.0 to 2.4 inches per second. A change in temperature of 10 degrees, 1.0 to 3.2 inches per second. As a result of these and other factors, every home in Florida has minor superficial cracks, whether or not they are near a blasting area. Can anything else cause vibrations to my house? Many events cause vibrations that can be measured against the county standard. Fireworks at 1,500 feet, 0.02 to 0.58 inches per second. Slamming the front door, 0.15 to 1.9 inches per second. Driving a nail to hang a picture, 0.2 to 2.1 inches per second. Wind at 20 miles per hour, 0.6 to 2.6 inches per second. Wind at 50 miles per hour, 1.1 to 6.7 inches per second. Common occurrences such as these do not cause us concern, even though their vibrations often exceed the county standard for blasting. It is the suddenness of mining blasts that cause some people alarm. That is why the mining industry is working on ways people living nearby could find out weather and conditions permitting when a blast is going to take place near their area. So blasting vibrations seem to be more of an annoyance than a danger. In an urban setting, there are many things that are annoying. Airplanes, trains, buses, police cars, fire trucks, and the early morning song of the garbage truck. All can be annoying, but far from causing harm, these things greatly improve the quality of our lives.